Hello, welcome to Cracking the Rich Code, the podcast. I'm your host, John Verico, and my guest today is very special. And I know I say that all the time, but this is a really very special guest because we've got a lot in common. We both are really strong about helping people navigate through change. So, without further ado, let me bring in coach, speaker, author, and change communication guru, Mary Lou Panzano. Mary Lou, how are you today?
I'm great, June. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm looking forward to our chat today. Thank you.
Oh, we should have a lot of fun, just because we're both of the same kind of mindset, and I can't wait to get a hold of a copy of Volume 18.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Me either. I'm excited to see what the other authors are bringing to the table.
What's interesting is that we get these things and we're excited that we're in the book, but we wind up reading everybody else's stuff because we want to see, hey, who else is in here with me? And it's so exciting to learn about each other and get all these different perspectives. I mean, there's 20 some odd authors in each edition of Cracking the Rich Code, which makes it really a treasure trove of wonderful advice and guidance and perspective. And so I am really I just can't wait to read your chapter because you've got a really interesting take on change. And I know that your chapter is called The 4-Ingredient Secret Recipe for Effective Change. And I hope to learn more about that. We'll talk a little bit about what's in that chapter while we're here.
Great.
But we don't want to give away the whole farm.
Right.
So, so before we go any further, let's chat a little bit about who are you? Like, who's Mary Lou, and how did you get into this whole idea of becoming a speaker, coach, and just learning so much about change?
Yeah. So thank you so much. I really appreciate the question, and it is particularly fitting that you and I are recording this on August 8th because the reason, and I'll explain it in a second, this day is very meaningful for me because it really did shift my focus from the corporate arena that I had been in for more than 40 years, doing change communications work for over 35 of those years, to figuring out a better way to help others do and what I've been able to do successfully, and to help them manage and navigate through change, whether it's at a business or in their personal lives. And so the story is that on August 8th of 2021, my older brother passed away from a non-curable, debilitating disease. He was 3 weeks short of his 61st birthday and is only 2 years older than me. So it was very difficult for all of us. We knew his days were numbered, but today is the anniversary of his death. So it's just fitting. I think the universe brings us together sometimes for reasons. But as I think about what it was like coming back
Mary Lou,
from... Yes.
Mary Lou, what was his name?
His name is Alex. His name was Alex.
Alex. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll send some love up to Alex. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate that. And thank you for asking. So Alex had this very difficult situation that he had to deal with, and we flew to Florida, and we were at his bedside when he passed. And we were flying back from Florida, and I was sitting there reflecting on what had just happened over the last week. And I said to myself, the stress, the relentlessness of this, we were still in the throes of the COVID pandemic. I was dealing with all of the employee communications around that. We hadn't figured out what hybrid work was going to mean for us. I had a new boss again after so many years. And I just said, life is too short to not do the things I've always wanted to do, which is teach. Now, through communications work, you could say, well, you're educating and you're teaching all the time, but that it's different. You're teaching about what the corporation wants, not what you feel like you can really contribute to people and help them through. So his passing was a turning point for me. And I made the decision that day after chatting with my husband and talking with our financial advisor, is like, I think I need to retire now. And my husband's 11 years older than me. And I thought, my brother didn't get a chance to enjoy his retirement at all. And I didn't want to be in that situation. And then I also thought back about how challenging his life was. And I really believe that he never achieved some of the things he wanted to achieve. And a lot of it comes down to you. Like, you can try to help as much as you can, but I feel like if I can help other people not experience a life less lived, as I call it, then that's what I need to do.
Yes.
And that's really where the shift in my focus came. And I retired in the beginning of 2022, and it took me about a year to disengage from 40 years of being in the corporate arena, right? And I decided that I wanted to teach this change framework that we're going to talk a little bit about. But also, I really truly believe that all change begins with you. It begins from within. And the more I've been
Yes.
out there speaking about this and talking with people, and the framework I'm going to talk about resonates very, very strongly with people. It's been interesting to hear them say that, all kinds of things can change around you, but if you don't make the change, nothing happens. So my big aha over the last year or so has been, my real benefit will be working with people one-on-one, and then they can take what they're learning and applying and finding out about themselves and go implement change more effectively with their organizations and with their employees. They can make good on the changes they want to make in their lives finally for change. So
And sometimes, sometimes it takes a tragic loss
yeah.
to see what you had to see to make the change in your life. Sometimes we get into our set
Yeah.
mode, and we go through life doing whatever we're doing to, make ends meet. And there's so much more that we can do, and we may think about it,
Mhm.
but we don't actually take action on it until something like this
Yeah.
happens. And you realize, hey, I got to do this
Mhm.
now before I
Right.
can't, because you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And my father passed at 58.
I'm sorry, I didn't know that. Yeah. Sorry.
And so I think about that all the time, especially now that I'm 67. Uh, but every day past that is a
Mhm.
blessing, I think, to
Mhm.
me. And so when I think about things like that, and I think all the things that he did not get a chance to
Yeah.
experience, I mean, he had a child with his new wife at that
Mhm.
point in his
Mhm.
life. And he unfortunately passed away when my half sister was only 3 months
Oh,
old.
wow. Wow.
And so that was such an eye opener for us in the
Mhm.
family to say, hey, wait a minute. Wow, we really need to take a look and make a good assessment of what we're doing with ourselves and how we're dedicating our time and how we're using our time, and making those changes are traumatic. And I stayed in government. Now, like you were in corporate
Yeah.
for 40 years. I was in
Mhm.
government for
Mhm.
42 years. And the same thing, I got to a point where I said, it is time to step out of this, go out there and make a difference and help people while
Right.
I can, while I still have, some wits about
Mhm.
me. And, well, I'm not too
Right.
crazy, and get out there. But making the change is very
Yeah.
frightening. And that's what I wanted to add, all of that to get to this point, to talk about the fact that, we all would like something to change. Like, oh, I wish I had more money. I wish I had a better job. I wish I didn't have to commute. I didn't,
Yeah.
whatever it is, just something you want to change in your life. But actually going through change is very frightening. So how do you help people look at and embrace the opportunity to change?
And I really appreciate the question. And for most people, the biggest, I find that for most people, the biggest fear is the fear of the unknown. It's like you live in the situation that you live in because it's the devil, and you don't know, like, the angel you can see or grasp if you stay in the zone that you're in. And some people,
Right.
change happens to them, right? And it's not something that they caused, and now they've got their own thing going on, and then corporations come in and lob on change number 6, change number 7, change number 8. And people have things going on in their personal lives, and the mental health issues, at least in the United States, and burnout are at unprecedented levels, and they're climbing, and it's across all
Yeah.
generations. So there's a real problem here that we need to try to crack. So the way I think about starting to realize it is, you really need to know why you want to make the change, and having clarity around what that is, why it's important for you, how it's going to impact your life, and getting really rooted in that. The coaching work that I do really helps people sort of dive into places, deep places that they haven't been in a while. And it just all of a sudden they realize, wow, I didn't know that that was holding me back. And that's one of the things that's so
Yes.
satisfying about taking people through change, is that there's a lot of self discovery if they're willing. Like, they've got to be open to exploration. Otherwise, it doesn't really work as well. And, asking the right questions at the right time and observing their physiology when you're in a conversation with them. You could see when they light up when they talk about something. And then you see when they, look off to the side or they get emotional or whatever. So having that clarity is really, like, I believe that is the key. And whether you're talking about clarity around an organizational change that you want to make, or that you're trying to bring your employees along with and gain that buy-in, the one of the biggest failures with the way change is managed in organizations, and 70 or 80% of the time, the changes companies are trying to implement don't take hold, either at all or only to some degree. And if you think about the time and money and the loss of productivity that companies experience, it climbs into the millions sometimes. And then there's the next change, and then there's the next change, and then there's another change. And you don't even know if those changes are working before the next one's there. And a lot of leaders, if you think about their role, they're looking at the competition, they're looking at the environment, they're looking at the market, they're looking at trends, they're figuring out, what does AI mean for us, and what are we going to do about that? And they're months and months ahead of everybody else at the end of the chain. And so a lot of times when the communicators get brought in, and it's like, okay, now we're going to make this change, help us do it, they're so
Right.
far
And what's
ahead. They're
interesting.
so far ahead. They have to step back and go, you need to lay some groundwork here and explain why this change is so critical and how it's going to impact them and how you're going to help them through it. If you don't have that clarity, people are just going to be like, another change? Really? Really? I can't get my head wrapped around this. So
Well, being in the military and in government, right? So in the military, we would get a new commanding officer every two or
yeah,
3 years, or you would be transferred and go to a new place every
yeah,
2 or 3 years, or 4 or 5, depending on where you were. But it was all kinds of constantly changing. And in government, of course, depending on the kind of organization you're in, the big boss changes every couple of years
right.
too. So there's always somebody else who wants to come in and change the flavor of the
Mm-hmm.
soup to fit
Yeah,
their model, whatever that might be. And in the corporate world, a lot of that is focused also on the bottom
yeah,
line. And that doesn't necessarily translate down to the people who have to implement the change, the people who actually doing the work.
yeah. And I think,
So the corporation, the
yeah,
big boss is making changes because he wants to impact the bottom line. But you know, to be honest, the folks at this level could give a rat's
yeah,
patootie about the bottom line for making money for the CEO. They want to figure out how it's going to
how it
impact
impacts
them,
them.
and that's what is always missing.
That's always what it's missing. And when I talk about the framework, there's two anchors to it that are very specific to business strategic, objectives that need to be in terms of how you manage change for those objectives. So you've got the business strategy piece, and then you've got the human behavior piece. And that's the piece when I talk about the framework, and I'll go through it a little bit more in a few minutes. But when I talk about the framework, it's like people forget that to get from clarity to the end result, you got to go through hundreds and thousands of people. And people are humans. They're not machines. Like, until organizations are run only purely by machines, which maybe in our lifetime we will see that. But until that happens,
I don't want to see that.
honestly, it scares the bejesus out of me. But the reality is, human beings still run and make organizations work, regardless of the kinds of machines that you have. So skipping the human behavior piece and the human connection piece is where a lot of change efforts fail. So the first piece of it is just clearing up that lack of understanding with clarity. So there's 4 C's to this framework. And if you indulge me, I'll just race through the others.
Yeah. First of all, just for our listeners and viewers, if you're just tuning in, you want to go back and replay the first half of this because Mary Lou is brilliant. But we're speaking with Mary Lou Panzano, and she has written a chapter called um, the 4-ingredient secret recipe for effective change in volume 18 of Cracking the Rich Code. And so let's talk a little bit about what these
Yeah,
ingredients
so
are.
as we've been talking, the first one is clarity. And when employees have that lack of understanding and lack of knowing how is this going to impact me? What's the outcome? What I know the future state because I'm living it. You're trying to talk to me about or I know the current state. You're trying to talk to me about a future state, and I'm still trying to get my day job done. Help me get through this. So that lack of understanding is really critical to get through. So the first piece of that recipe is clarity. Being clear about what the goal is, most importantly, why the change is needed, how the change is going to impact you, and how we're going to support you in getting through it. And those last two pieces, the impact and the support, are often left to middle managers or some level of managers are trying to figure it all out for themselves, who, by the way, are feeling the same way their employees are because they don't know what the impact of the change is going to be on them necessarily. So that first piece is clarity.
They just know
They
they
just
have
know
to
they've got to do
implement.
something with it, and here's like another change, and we're exploding from the last change you gave me 5 minutes ago. So that's what people are dealing with today. So the second one, though, is I call it connection. So a lot of times leaders, I was just talking about this a minute ago, I'll repeat it for people who are joining in. They're so far ahead in their thinking has evolved so much by the time the change begins to get communicated that all the people in the middle don't have the benefit of all of that background, right? And so that when leaders don't openly share, here's the challenge.
They don't
I
know
don't
the
know the why.
why.
Here's the opportunity. Here's what the competitive competition is doing. If we don't get out in front of this X, Y, and Z, or look at the, the benefit it will have, whatever those reasons are. If there's a lack of transparency around that, employees can sniff it. Like they're like, you're not telling us everything. So if you're not telling us everything and helping us help you, then leaders are really going to be stuck with a group of people that would be like, I don't get this. I don't know what. You're not involving me. You're not engaging me. You're imposing this upon me. And yesterday there was a different change, or my boss is different, or somebody whatever. There's constant change going on all the time. So that the second piece is connection. Really being thoughtful and intentional about engaging and involving your whatever next level leaders, your managers, your frontline people, your customer service reps. All of these people know the business better than you probably think they do. And they're happy to help you solve problems because they're dealing with those issues all the time. So that's the second piece, is connection. The third one is caring. So now this was interesting in the research I did for the book I'm writing on this, which this chapter in volume 18 is sort of like the appetizer for the rest of the meal here. But it's interesting. People have a very, very strong affiliation at work. Most people, they have good friends who work there. They like, for the most part, the kind of work that they do. Most people are working for companies where they align with the mission, the values, what the company is trying to do. Not all, but many. And so when you come in and you threaten to disrupt that affiliation, it's like going into a 13-year-old girl's room and putting her away her clothes, and they're going to be like, Mom, like, don't touch my stuff. Like, what are you doing? You're harming.
It's like going in my
Right,
room and proving my
you're
stuff.
harming my friends by changing their jobs or doing downsizings, or you're forgetting about the fact that all this knowledge that I know, and you're not letting me leverage it so that I can help solve problems. And so that caring piece is often lacking as well. And the other piece about caring that's really important is caring about yourself. We all know the safety message that we hear with flight attendants say, right? Put your oxygen mask on first if the cabin pressure should change or whatever. Put your mask on first before assisting others. Well, why do they say that? Because you're really not going to
Because you can't help anybody else
if you're
you're
gasping for air or unconscious, right? So, like, it's so logical, and yet people, if you're going to try to lead a change for yourself or for the rest of your organization, you need to have the stamina. You have to be healthy. You have to be willing to listen You have to be willing to be empathetic. Like the skills and the capabilities that leaders have had and that they grew up with in the, like, you know, GE worlds, that doesn't work anymore. Like the 20th century leadership isn't working now, and it's not going to work in the future. Leaders need to start leaning more into the heart and not only the head. Like the scales are just tipped. There's all this stuff lined up with, this is important, this is shareholder profitability, this is blah blah blah, you know, name it, all this intellectual stuff, and they're forgetting about the human impact of all of that. We need to get them to level that off a little bit. So the first C is,
Well, I've always said this, is the fact that people don't do business with businesses; they do business with people. It's the human interaction. If your people aren't happy, they're not going to be representing your company well either.
yeah,
And if they don't understand the changes that the company's going through, they're not going to be able to represent that as
they're
well. So
resented.
it's this is so critical that people forget this. So let's go over those
So
first
the
three
first
C's
three
again.
C's are clarity, getting, you know, knowing and sticking to the goal, and understanding why that is and articulating that in a clear, compelling way. The second is connection, engaging and involving your people, even your naysayers, in fact, especially your naysayers, in the change effort.
Especially in naysayers.
Caring enough to sort of demonstrate that you are listening to your employees, that you care about what the impact is going to be on them, and how important it is to take care of yourself as you're leading through this. Because if you are stressed out, losing sleep, you know, overweight, can't breathe, you're going to not be in the best situation to deal with the challenges that you're going to deal with taking the people through the change. The healthy, you're just going to snap at everything, and you're going to be like a stressed out, arrogant bastard, and no one's going to want to work for you. And they're going to resent making the change. I mean, these are generalities, but this is what I've seen in my 4 years in the corporate world. And
yeah, you're spot on. Absolutely
I
spot on. And I will tell you that happens in every single organization. It's not just in corporate. I've seen it in government. I've seen it in the military. I've seen it in the nonprofit sector. And especially in the nonprofit sector,
I mean, that's it.
Where people are only there because of the mission. And when things change, it's like,
Yeah, exactly. I'm the board president for a local Habitat for Humanity affiliate. And you know, we see it not as much in our own organization, but we see it around that this is really so important. And we've been using this framework with our own organization. So it's really helpful to see it actually working. And then the last C, so we have clarity, connection, caring. And the last one is courage. You gotta take risks. You gotta take action, because you can have all the clarity in the world, like Waterford crystal clear. You can have as many connections as Taylor Swift. You could care as much as Mother Teresa, but if you don't do anything and take action, nothing's gonna happen. Nothing happens if nothing happens. Like, you've got to initiate something to move the change forward, and those have to be calculated risks.
Got to take that first step.
You got to take the first step, and you got to learn as you go with that. And so, and if you go into that courage state and that activation stage with this mindset of, I'm going to move with what I know. I'm the leader. I don't know everything, but I'm going to move with what I know. I'm going to learn along the way. And if you focus on doing the right thing, like always doing the right thing in the right way, it's hard to lose, because you're coming at it from the right place, of a place of caring, of a place of, you know, we want to bring you along on this journey because it's going to benefit all of us in the end, whatever that is. So those are the 4 elements of the framework. And if you think about that as a recipe, those are the ingredients at the top of the recipe. I was looking for a recipe of my grandmother's not too long ago to celebrate the first birthday of our grandson. And I wanted to make cream puffs. So I went and I found my grandmother's recipe, and it was written in her hand. I'm like, oh God, I'm going to make grandma's cream puffs. And I pulled out the recipe, and it had oil stains on it, and it was all crinkled. And there were some places where it was hard to read the words because they were, you know, waterlogged or whatever it was on yellow paper. And I'm like, oh, great, I have the ingredients. And at the top, it said regular recipe. And then on the bottom, it said large amount. I don't know what that means, but that's what it said. So I was like, okay, so everything was like doubled or something like that, because it didn't say it makes 14 cream puffs. Who knows how many cream puffs it makes? So I flipped it over
Sure.
because I'm like, great, now I've got the ingredients. How do you make them? Bake at 350 until golden brown and fill. There were no instructions. There were no instructions. My heart sank. I was like, Grandma, are you kidding me? Like, there's no instruction. Like, what do you do? Do you separate the eggs? Do you beat the white? Like, how do you do this? So I think about the framework as the main ingredients. But then, and I talk more about this in my book, I mention it in the chapter of volume 18, is that there are a series of behaviors, which are the specific things that you need to do, that I feel that have been successful for me, that people need to do to make the change work, to make the change they want to make be successful. I call them the 12 principles of prosperity. If you do these things, and they're not necessarily difficult, but you have to be committed to wanting to make a personal change so that you can impact whatever it is you want to impact in the world, in your life, your family, and your company, whatever that is. So there are 3 that align with each one of the ingredients in the recipe. And these are behaviors and principles. I call them principles because they are foundational philosophies about how to live a faith-given life. It's Napoleon Hill, it's Tony Robbins, it's Og Mandino, it's Brian Tracy, it's, I don't know, Mark Cuban. I mean, you talk to people and there are some thematic things that they all talk about that I have applied in my own life, and I'm not perfect, but they've certainly helped me move my own needle forward.
I love it. Mary Lou, this has been a fantastic conversation, and I wish we had more time, but we are actually almost out of time. So I want to tell folks out there, definitely check out Mary Lou's chapter in volume 18, but also visit her website, helppeopleprosper.com. I'm saying that again, and I'm saying it verbally. It's flashing on the screen as well, because those people who are only listening to the audio of this aren't going to know what that says. So go to helppeopleprosper.com, learn more about what Mary Lou Panzano can do. And you can also look her up and connect with her on LinkedIn, which is probably one of the best ways to reach out to her. Mary Lou, this has been a fantastic conversation. And remember that when you're facing change or even trying to implement change, the ingredients to a wonderful recipe are clarity, connection, caring, and courage. Very, very important pieces of all of this. And I am so glad that we managed to schedule this on a very special day for you with significant meaning. Sending love up to Alex, your brother there. And, we all go through this kind of thing that helps us to realize where we are in life and the changes that we may want to make in our own lives. And that's what is so important. And I think that's the first step, is realizing that we want to make a change and then taking that first step to get there.
Absolutely.
There's a reason why they call Mary Lou the guru of change communications. I would come and visit your mountain and sit at your feet and try to learn more from you every single day. This is absolutely amazing. What great conversation. Is there anything that you would like our viewers or listeners to know about you, your chapter, or your upcoming book? And actually, what is the name of your upcoming book?
Thank you for asking. The name of my upcoming book is Cementing Change, Cracking the Code for Communications That Work. And the homage to my dad, who was a Mason, is where the name came from, because cement is foundational, it is sturdy, it is enduring, and so can change be, if you handle it a little bit better, more effectively. So that's my upcoming book. It'll be out this fall. The chapter in this volume of Cracking the Rich Code is essentially me having a conversation with someone I meet at the airport. and I'm going to be speaking on this topic, and she's going to be in the audience, and we just happened to meet each other at the airport. So I do share some of the wisdom behind how I came up with this, with a real practical business case there. So I hope you enjoy it. I hope it resonates with you.
I love it. I love it. Hey, with that, we are unfortunately out of time. Definitely reach out and connect with Mary Lou Panzano on LinkedIn. It's Panzano, by the way. And check out her website at helppeopleprosper.com and read her chapter in volume 18 of Cracking the Rich Code, the 4-ingredient secret recipe for effective change. Mary Lou, thank you for a dynamic conversation. I've learned so much. I was taking a lot of notes, by the way, too.
Well, good. For someone who knows about change, I think that there's some things I said that just sparked some memory for you as well. But also, I appreciate that, because I am really out here to help people make the change they want to make and help them prosper.
That's really what we're here on this planet for, is to help each other. And sometimes we forget that going through our daily lives. Mary Lou, thank you again. And thank you all for listening or watching the Cracking the Rich Code podcast. And we will see you next time.
Thanks again, John. It was an honor. Thanks.